Good evening, and welcome everyone to our September 13th, 2016 council meeting. Will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our invocation from Pastor Dwayne Cox. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Which Dwayne is. Okay, Dwayne's not here tonight. All right. Go for it. Yeah, you did a great job last time.
Okay, let's bow our heads forward. All right, dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for the town of West Milton. And I want to thank you for everyone that has joined for this meeting tonight, Lord. I just pray that you would lead us and help us to make good decisions, no matter how hard they are. And Lord, I just thank you for the opportunity to serve this community and to serve you, Lord. And just pray that you protect us and watch over us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilwoman, for that.
Yes.
Standing. Call this meeting to order. Can I get roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Francis.
Here.
Cobb.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Fogel.
Here.
Grudich.
Here.
Dorman.
Here.
And Tinnerman.
Here.
Okay, I believe we don't have any absent council members to deal with, so moving on to our minutes. Everyone should have received the council meeting minutes for the August 9th as well as the workshop minutes for August 23rd. This time, is there any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the council meeting minutes for August the 9th and the council workshop and special meeting minutes for August 23rd. Second that.
Council, before you is a motion regularly made and duly second to pass the meeting minutes for August 9th and the workshop and the special meeting for August 23rd. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cobb.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Fogel.
Yes.
Grudich.
Yes.
Dorman.
Yes.
Tinnerman.
Yes.
And Mayor Francis.
Yes. Minutes are approved. Okay. First on the agenda tonight is a public hearing for gas and electric aggregation. I'll turn that over to Manager Klein. Oh. Do you want to do that now?
No. In my report.
Okay.
It's for you, the introduction.
Here it is. It's report. Here we go. All right. This November, the voters of West Milton will be asked to consider the question of aggregation when it comes to both gas and electric utilities. To help explain what all that means, Ross Caluet from AGE is here to assist in this public hearing. So I'll turn it over to Ross.
You guys all good? I don't want to put my backs to council, but I want to be able to address the people too.
For the TV audience, though, we need you by the microphone.
Okay, everybody, thank you for having me this evening, council, Matt, residents. So as the mayor said, I'm here to discuss electric and gas aggregation. I'm going to say electric and take everything I say for electric and assume the same for gas. It's basically the same thing, but electric is the one we always focus on just because there tends to be more savings there. So one thing I wanted to pass around, these are some brochures that go into pretty significant detail about the program. I got some extras if we don't have enough. The bottom line concept behind aggregation is essentially bulk purchasing power. So just like you would typically find better prices at Walmart or Sam's Club or Costco, aggregation is the combining of the entire community's electric load being shopped to various suppliers, making them compete to earn the business of the entire community. And in the case of how our company, AGE, helps the communities run these programs, we actually have 13 communities voting this November on this very same issue. So it wouldn't just be West Milton, it would be West Milton along with about a population of another 20,000 across a couple of different cities and villages, townships, counties. So the basic goal of aggregation, while typically 40 to 60% of folks in the DPL area have already made a choice on their own by going to the Public Utilities Commission, apples to apples site or wherever, and choosing a competitive supplier. You get a rate for a term. and that's your electric supply price. This program is certainly available to folks who have already made a choice, but it's primarily intended for residents who have never made a choice and are on what we call the DPL default rate, also known as the standard service offer as an official term. That just means they've never made a choice. They typically pay a little bit more on that rate as a result. That rate varies month to month, so one month you could be down here, another month you could be up there. Versus a competitive supply rate you might acquire would typically be fixed for a period of time at a certain rate. The aggregation is designed to assist those residents who haven't made a choice. It runs through a process, obviously, starting with council, overseen by the Public Utilities Commission. So there's this public meeting, for example, is one of 2 required public meetings that have to be held prior to any of this becoming reality. Obviously, the residents have to vote in the affirmative on this program for it to become a reality. So it's very much designed so that nothing untoward could happen. It's regulated essentially. So what we're asking the residents to do is simply vote yes on the electric and gas aggregation questions. They're separate questions, sound almost the same, and I'll read the sample language. Voting yes will allow the council to run through some regulatory stuff that will help them handle and submit the electric load of the community to the various suppliers for a bid. Those bids will come back, and ultimately council has the ability to say, no, these don't represent any real savings, or yes, they absolutely do, and we want to move forward with this and put a rate in place for the residents. I'll just briefly touch on some of the historical rates we've seen. Electricity is a commodity, as is natural gas, and so there's no rate that I can tell you today. It's based off of the unique community and the market at the time. However, the most recent rate we can talk about was secured for a group of communities in Shelby County last election cycle, including the city of Sydney. It was 5.441 cents per kilowatt hour for 36 months. At the time, the DPL price to compare that rate would compete against, I believe, was 7.49 cents per kilowatt hour, which comes out to 27% savings. For your standard single-family home, that'd be like $180 to $200 per year in savings, again, fixed for 3 years. So that's the really high-level basic overview. If we can, there's a video that runs about 1.5 minutes that will touch on a lot of that stuff more eloquently than I can.
Go ahead, Tom.
Vote yes for lower electricity and natural gas rates. A yes vote allows your community to negotiate a community-wide bulk electricity and natural gas rate, which has historically delivered rates of up to 25% below current utility rates. Through a competitive bidding process, suppliers compete to serve your entire community. If a great rate is offered, all eligible residents and small businesses will automatically be included. You remain in complete control of your rate and can opt out of the citywide rate at any time. Under community aggregation, you remain a customer of the local utility. You continue to call those utilities for billing and service questions. Nothing changes except the rate you pay for the electricity and natural gas you use. The choice is yours, but first the referendum must be approved before a lower rate can be negotiated. If you have already chosen a supplier on your own, you can still vote yes to help your friends and neighbors who have not yet chosen a supplier save on their utility bills. At the end of your current contract, you'll be eligible to participate in the Community Choice Aggregation Program. Aggregation is the ultimate in local choice and control over your electricity and natural gas rates. For more information, visit www.affordableelectricrates.com. Vote yes for lower electricity and natural gas rates.
Okay, and there was a website that flashed up there, and if there's anything that anyone thinks question-wise after this evening, after we're all gone, www.affordableelectricrates.com probably has the answer to that. There's a whole bunch of FAQs and very detailed information out there. Touch on a few other points that were made. To be clear, there is no requirement to participate in this program. Even if the vote approves the measure and the city puts, or the village puts something in place, you may opt out at any time from the program with no termination fee, no penalty whatsoever. Similarly, you can actually opt in at any time with no fee, no penalty, et cetera, for the remainder of the term. If there's a 36-month deal put in place and you join at the 12-month mark, you would go for the remaining 24 months. A frequent question we get asked on our Facebook page dedicated to this is, well, what's the catch? And quite literally, there is no catch. The residents remain in complete control of their bills, opt out at any time, opt in at any time. We have some people that do it more or less seasonally, where if they feel they can get a better rate from the Public Utilities Commission Apples to Apples website from a supplier, they can do that for 6 months. They can come back to the program after that expires, et cetera. Another great point, you remain a customer with DPL and Vectren gas here, right? That's what I thought. You would continue to pay those bills, so if you have some sort of auto pay or level billing set up, none of that needs to change. The only thing that changes is the line item on the bill that says your supply rate is X. You would have the aggregation rate as opposed to the default rate. Other than that, I think that's pretty well covering it. I should have said a few words about our company, Affordable Gas and Electric. We're a consultant that works in this industry. We work with commercial and industrial customers as well as 57 Illinois communities, 9 DPL communities that are already up and running, and as I said, we have 13 more voting this November, including West Milton. So we've done this in a lot of communities. It's generally pretty non-controversial, so long as folks understand what the program is about. So we ask you to vote yes on the question. Will be read as follows. Shall the Village of West Milton have the authority to aggregate retail electric loads located within the governmental boundaries of the village and enter into service agreements for the sale and purchase of electricity, such aggregation to occur automatically except where any person elects to opt out? Regarding opting out, it's as simple as making a phone call, sending in a postcard, getting onto a website and saying, my name is John Smith, I don't want to participate, and you're out. Other than that, are there any questions I can answer? Start from the left.
Okay, if this thing goes through, what would be the effective date that the contract
Great
would
question.
start?
So the November vote, November 8th, it typically takes about 6 months from the date of the election to when your service would start at the new rate. So I think April meter read, your meter read is April 1st, 2nd, 3rd, whatever. That would be when you go on flow. So then May's bill would be for April usage, and that would be your first month at the new rate.
Okay, one more question. Like I have a contract that if I get out of it, they charge me.
Right, early termination.
And so what's the best thing for a person to do? Like I have a contract that's for CCF gas that ends October 1st, this coming October 1st. Should I go ahead and go on a variable rate until this thing goes through to avoid the 1-year thing, or what would be the smart thing?
Yeah, so you've got a couple different options, and I wouldn't, it kind of depends on what you think natural gas is going to do going into the winter.
What do you think?
Well, I would say if natural gas prices are relatively at 14-year lows, it's ticked up a little bit in the last couple of months, but by and large, they're dirt cheap. Whether an aggregation rate or the Vectren standard service offer, I don't know what you're currently paying, but if you were tied to a variable rate of any fashion, it would be cheap right now.
48.9.
Okay, and I think the SCO rate, 42, 43, varies a little bit. Aggregation rate, the most recent aggregation rate we had for that November group last year was 3,998, I think, for 2 years. So it was a good rate. Part of that was we got lucky in the market, just timing-wise. But again, the power of aggregation, you generally won't find an individual rate that is better than an aggregation. We've never seen it.
Well, I definitely want to do this, but I just
Okay.
don't want to do anything stupid
So-
in the meantime.
The worst case scenario, if you did do a 12-month renewal or an auto renewal, or you were on an index rate, you could join the program the following October. Worst case, if you wanted to, sort of play it safe and be on a fixed rate from this October to next October, you could do that, see what our rate comes out at, and then make a decision then. If you wanted to take a little bit of risk, you could just default back to the Vectren SCO rate. Whoever your provider is right now, just say, hey, I want to go back to the utility. They'll put you back on the utility. You will literally pay the market rate there. And then once the aggregation program is in effect, roughly April next year, you would automatically be included in that group.
So if I could do like a 6-month thing, that
Yeah,
might be a
perfect.
smart thing to do.
A lot of suppliers will offer you a 6-month deal, it depends on who it is specifically.
Okay.
But that's, again, you can move in and out of an aggregation program very easily, so it's really up to you how you want to
And
handle
if you happen to pick the supplier is successful, as far as the bid, it happens to be the guy I'm with.
Right.
There's no problem.
it. Right, what they'll do, so you'll have whatever your individual rate is, and they would never advertise this to you, but we can make it happen to where we say, hey, he's an existing customer, you need to transition him to that new rate right now. Okay, we'll take care of it for you.
Thank you very
Sure.
much.
Yes, sir.
So you're saying, just to be clear, that there's any type of sign-up fee?
Nope,
Or early termination fee?
nothing.
Will there ever be?
No, not in a program we manage. There are other programs out there, other aggregation consultants. It's a term you can negotiate, but all of our stuff is governed by something we call the Plan of Operation and Governance, which you guys will have a copy of. It's a 16-page document if you're really bored that spells out all of those things that the city or village or whoever is allowed to do and not do in their program. All of ours prohibit any sort of fee
So what type
termination.
of percentage in this town is still on the regular DPL?
We won't know that officially until we see the load data, which can only happen after the vote and after a Public Utilities Commission approval process. But generally speaking, in DPL territory on a residential basis, it's anywhere from 45 to 55% of folks are still on the DPL default service. So roughly half.
Why do you consider that somebody hasn't made a decision?
That's a fair point. They haven't made a decision to leave DPL, the utility.
So they might have made a decision just to stay?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Have you had anybody on, go beyond for 36 months?
Well, the rules of the program is stipulated by the Public Utilities Commission. It essentially says every 36 months you have to have the ability to get out. What it really means effectively is that the maximum term you can do in an aggregation program is 36 months on electric. It's actually 24 months for gas. That is the one difference with gas. So that's literally all we are capable of securing. Now, at the end, as that term ends, say we recommend a 36-month deal and that's what the village puts in place, there will be a renewal, whether that be for another 12, 24, 36, but it'll be the same process all over again. No vote is required. Once that's done, it's done. But as the consultant, we would renegotiate those rates and rebid it to all the suppliers. And so it's not a scenario where you get a great rate for 3 years and then you go back to the utility. It doesn't exist anymore. It's perpetual. It's just the contracted rate can only last for 36 months before it has to be renegotiated. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What if the rate would go down in your 36-month period?
You mean if the rate to compare with DPL goes down?
Yeah.
If that happens, like I said, you're free to leave at any time. We have never been above the DPL utility rate over the last couple of years. If it ever did happen, we would encourage folks to watch it. The DPL rate changes every month versus ours being fixed. So the more likely scenario is if we ever even got close, and keep in mind we're at 25% below at this point roughly. If it ever got close, watch it for a month or two, and if you're convinced that the DPL rate is going to stay where it's at, you can leave, no question. And then if it goes back up, you can come right back into the aggregation program. Any other questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir. I forgot about this side of the room.
No problem, that's fine. So you just answered sort of one of my questions, is no additional vote will need to be passed for this. Once it's in place, it's in place. So how is this rescinded or removed or anything
It's
like
at the
that?
discretion of council. Obviously, if council elects to go with, say, a 36-month term, that would be an agreement with the supplier for that period of time. Everybody on an individual basis can opt out, and so effectively that would mean the program doesn't exist anymore. But as far as the contract between the village and the supplier, it would exist for that term. If you elected to not renew or renegotiate or whatever, we call that idling. That's happened in some cases, mostly up in the Cleveland area where rate structure is just totally different. And some old aggregation deals weren't competitive anymore. They didn't ever renew. Everybody gets kicked back to the utility at that point.
Okay, all right, sounds good. And then the other question, I didn't really hear you say it. So if something happens that this passes in November, and then you folks go through your 6-month process, how will the people in the village be notified that, with sign-up procedures and so
Okay.
forth? So how that would work? Will it be online? Will it be?
It'd be everything, frankly. In terms of, we have a dedicated Facebook page that will cover all of this stuff. You can call us. You can go to we have a dedicated campaign website, theaffordableelectricrates.com. In terms of signing up, there is actually, the beauty of it is there's no sign-up required. If you do not opt out, if you're eligible, meaning you're on the utility default service, and you do not opt out, you will be automatically included. So really, you don't have to do anything if you want to participate. Only if you want to get out, do you need to make that phone call or email or.
So if like right now I have, say, direct energy, and then this aggregation rate comes in lower, technically I wouldn't have to do anything to switch over to that, or I would have to do
No,
something?
if you are under a current agreement with an alternative supplier, so anyone other than DPL, the utility,
Okay.
in that case, correct, you would need to, we call it opt-in. That would necessitate a phone call to an 800 number. The process varies a little bit depending on which supplier wins the bid, but by and large, you call an 800 number, give them your DPL account number, and
Okay.
that's it.
Makes sense.
And we can certainly handle that. We do conference calls or three-way calls between the supplier, the residents, and ourselves a lot of time to help walk through the process. It takes 5 minutes, pretty simple.
Very good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you just brought a point of only those who are on the default DPL program are automatically switched over.
Correct.
So if a resident is on some other type of service, they won't be automatically switched over, meaning that it won't end their contract for them
Correct.
with that other person. They don't have to worry about
That's
it
exactly right.
kicking
Yep.
them off and have a cancellation policy or a cancellation
Yep.
fee.
And that's the exact reason it's done that way
Okay.
is we don't, the last thing we want is for anyone to have to spend more as a result of this. So that group, some people have a $10 termination fee, and it makes all the sense in the world for them to pay it and get in the program. Other people,
Yes.
$300, and that's an
Right.
individual thing, so those folks are not automatically included.
Now, once, let's say they were 6 months remaining on a contract, once they're kicked back, if they don't renew their contract with that supplier, and they go back to the utility's standard rate, at that point, will they sit there and idle with that utility and need to call to sign up for this program? Or as soon as they kick back on to the standard rate, will they automatically,
I won't
even
say-
6 months down the road, be
It's
transferred?
not as soon as, but within a 30 to 45-day period. We
Okay.
do what's called refreshes, where we scrub the list of customers and say, and is there anyone new on this list that's
Okay.
eligible? Those folks, if they show up, they will get sent the opt-out toolkit that says, if you don't want to participate in this, do this. Otherwise, sit tight and you'll transition over. The time between when someone defaults back to the utility and after everything's actually done could be 60 days.
Sure.
But that's right. So in the meantime, if you really want to be proactive and spend as little time as possible on the default rate,
Okay.
call us or call the supplier, and we can get you taken care of a little quicker. But worst case, it's a matter of 2 months, so.
And in that case, if they are wanting to stay in the default rate, you will be required to notify them before they are automatically enrolled
Yes.
into the program?
Yes.
So that they are aware of if they've lost track of time of falling back or how much time they have.
Yep,
You'll notify them so that they can remain there if that's what they
That's
choose.
correct. They will receive we call it an opt-out toolkit. Think of a packet of information. There's a 21-day period from when you receive that letter to, you can opt out before anything happens. After that 21 days, there's another 7-day rescission period with the utility, so essentially 30 days.
Okay.
You have to get out of it before anything happens at all. Even if you were to miss that and still want to be on DPL default, it's as simple as picking up a phone and saying, I want out of the aggregation rate, and they'll put you right back on the utility. It might take 2-3 weeks, again, to get switched, but.
Right.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure that I was clear with that. My my perception of where I want to make sure people understand is that they truly can come and go as they
Yes.
want to. When they hear automatic opt-in, I'm sure that unless they know the information, that can be a concern to people. And so I just want to make sure I can
Okay,
explain
perfect.
it when they have those questions.
I kind of look at it as sort of like a doctor thing, like first do no harm. That's the overall intent of this, is to make it as accessible and easy to undo as possible. So again, we always say folks are in total control of their bills. It is different in that sense than if you got a contract with a supplier already with an early termination fee. There is no termination fee. It's as simple as a phone call to get out. So we look at it as there's really no downside to it. Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't you be sending a letter telling people that are on DP&L saying you now have the opportunity to sign up for this, as opposed to just automatically trying to switch them?
Part of the reason that the rates are so much more favorable on the opt-out aggregation side of things, obviously direct mail response rates are 1-2% typically, sometimes more for great things, but generally very few people respond to them. Opt-out, you usually capture 80 to 90% of everybody, at least on the first go-around. As a result, there are very small cost of acquisition for the suppliers. So whereas let's say you had a telemarketer or even an online campaign, or God forbid a door-to-door salesperson, it might cost $100 for that supplier to acquire a new customer, in addition to whatever their rate is. That number is ridiculously less under an aggregation program because the suppliers know, the majority of people will participate in this program. So it's very cheap for them to acquire, say, 1,000 customers at once as opposed to one customer 1,000 times.
Basically, it's doing something without letting people know what's going to happen.
Well, I would disagree with that, because you are going to receive notification that if you don't act within 30 days, you are going to automatically be included in this rate.
So there will be notifications?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Stating you need to do something?
Yes.
Before such a...
And typically the way it would work, if the ballot measure passes, which generally these pass 80+% in the affirmative, that starts everything, right? And by roughly February to March, you would be getting that notification kit that explains everything, tells you what to do if you want to opt out, tells you the rate. We won't know the rate until it's negotiated and what the market is at the time. So it would be that late February to March time period that you would be looking for something like that. Nobody may be included in that program unless they were informed through that toolkit.
Okay, so basically, people automatically get signed up on this program unless they tell you no?
Yes, that's correct.
DP&L.
Yes, that's correct. There is one other way. If you want to rule out aggregation entirely as a resident, the Public Utilities Commission has a list. I think they call it the Do Not Aggregate list, kind of like a do not call list. You just have to go onto their website, search for Do Not Aggregate, and key in your vital information, and they will actually put you on a list that stops your name from ever appearing on an eligible customer list, and you'll retain with DPL default service.
Yeah, 'cause I would say that 45% of the people, that, at least using your number, that have elected to stay with DP&L, they probably wouldn't want to necessarily get automatically switched over, even with an authentication at a time.
Could be. I mean, it obviously varies on an individual basis. That hasn't been the experience we've seen with most people. We find that in a lot of cases, it tends to be people who just, half of them may not have even known there was this option to do something else. But certainly there's a contingent of people that prefer to remain with the utility. In our opinion, some of the reasons are not necessarily accurate. One thought is, if I leave the utility and my power goes out, I'm going to be the last one to get their supply turbine, and it just doesn't work that way. DPL actually cannot profit as a utility off of the supply side, so we find a lot of people that say, oh, I got brother at work for DPL or whatever, and I don't want to hurt his pension. And very understandable, but it literally is not structured that way per the laws of the Public Utilities Commission. So that's been our experience, but you're right. Everyone has the opportunity to remain if they wish to remain.
What if this passes and you got, say, there's 2,000 customers who're going to switch over, and say 100 of them are in the rears on their utility bills at the present time? How do you guys work that?
That's a great point. If there's arrears on the bill, unless it's like they look at it, it's called 60 days arrears. If you've been in arrears, you didn't just happen to forget to mail the check this month and it's in the mail now sort of thing, but you have a history of arrears, you will not automatically be included. You are considered not eligible for that program. Similarly, if you are on a, they call it PIP, Public Percent Income Payment Plan, those folks would not be automatically included, would not be eligible for the program.
Program?
I'm sorry?
Are they like you was gonna say, the HENS program, or you're on a discount anyway?
The percent income payment plan is some kind of a discount program that would exclude you from eligibility in this.
In the winter, it's called heat.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sometimes they change those names. It's that actually brings up another great point. All electric rates, is anyone here on an all electric rate? No natural gas, you get electric heat? Okay. There can be some weird things that we have to look at it at the time that the aggregation rate actually gets put into place. Sometimes folks on that rate can have, we call it a sweetheart deal, where you would be better off staying if you were all electric. Not always true, but make that point.
Just out of curiosity, with no fees, no this, no that, how does the AGE profit from aggregate?
Well, and so to be clear, we are not the supplier. We are the consultant that walks everybody through this process, and so we are paid on a call it an adder, call it a fee, whatever you want to call it. It's $0.00075 dollars per kilowatt hour consumed in the community. So it's almost like an independent insurance agent. They don't care which provider. I mean, they care that it's a good provider, but they're agnostic so long as the quality of service is there. They get their commission by placing a customer with somebody. In our line of work, it could be IGS, who actually owns what used to be the retail subsidiary of DPL, called DPL Energy. It could be Constellation, could be Direct, could be AEP Energy, could be Dynegy. All of those are providers. They are the actual suppliers. They make money, not nearly as much as if they were to sign all those customers up on an individual basis where margins are a lot better, but they look at this as an opportunity for, they make their number in one day as opposed to acquiring 20,000 customers over a period of a year. They do it once. It's at thinner margins, but the customers generally are sticky because the rate is so good, so they can rely on it. And it's just a different business model than the one-off customer thing. Margins are better, but the customers tend to be a little better too for them. That make sense?
Yep.
Other questions? Oh, yes. Matt pointed out we got a couple of yard signs that are just say vote yes for lower electricity rates. And they've got our, I call it a campaign website, Affordable Electric Rates on it. If anybody would like to take any of those signs and place them up there, we'd be very grateful. Other than that, I don't think I've got anything else I can think to say.
Would just like to add that the reason that we put it consideration on the ballot for this November is that you may recall about 2.5 years ago we negotiated a rate that was an opt-in rate with DP&L. It was called the Community Savings Plan. You may have received some letters in regard to that. That program ends this coming May. So we knew it takes about 6 months for aggregation to kick in. So that program's going to end. So
Matt, can I ask you, do they give you any participation stats out of that?
they claimed that we had like 35%. That it was a shockingly high
Phenomenal
number.
number,
Yeah,
actually.
it was a phenomenal number.
Okay.
So it was over 30. So
But, like I said, generally the direct, was that a direct mail campaign, or
it was
how they managed
it was
that?
a direct mail, but we also let everyone know in our
Gotcha.
our
Okay.
utility bills.
That would explain, okay,
You
a
know,
little bit
et cetera,
higher.
websites, et cetera. So we had a pretty good opt-in program, surprising on the number.
Yeah.
But all of those people will be dropping out come
Right.
this May.
Okay. No other questions? All right, thank you guys so much for your time. We will be back October, I don't know if Matt knows the day off the top of my head, I can't remember.
Our meeting in
We'll be back
October.
There you go.
Thank you, Ross.
Thank you, everybody.
October 11th. October 11th, so we'll see you then.
And Matt, the gentleman with the flash drive?
Oh, yep. Just go down the hall, around the corner, through the door, and you'll see him on the left.
See the man behind the curtain.
See the man behind the curtain.
Pay no attention to the man. Okay, this time, do we have any correspondence to council?
None for this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from citizens regarding tonight's legislation?
Take care.
Hearing none. Moving on to ordinance resolutions. So we have Resolution CM-16-30. I believe Ben is going to be reading it tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution CM-16-30, appreciation for Jim Wilson. I want to thank Jim for coming tonight. He's happy to be here. Before I read the resolution, I just wanted to say that I did have the privilege of working with Jim Pickett Wilson for many years, actually 30 on fire, and aside from the 2 that I missed before he was here, about 28 years with the city. So I was privileged to work with him under great circumstances, not so great circumstances, and we had fun. And so with that said, I would like to read Resolution CM-16-30, a resolution commending and thanking Jim Pickett Wilson for his outstanding dedication and service to the municipality of West Milton. Whereas Jim Wilson, affectionately known as Pickett, has served the municipality of West Milton with dedication and integrity as a public works employee for 22 years and as a firefighter for 30 years. And whereas Jim has been an example of hard work, reliability, and trustworthiness. And whereas Jim has always known to protect the widows in town from being ripped off from various out-of-town solicitors. And whereas Jim had a unique internal clock, which means when he would tell you he would be there in short, it actually meant anywhere between 45 minutes and 2 hours. Whereas Jim never went by a house number or a street name, but by the knowledge of who lived at the property 50 years ago by saying something like, you know, over there where Ed Landensky's cousin used to live. And whereas Jim's greatest strength was his willingness to help any residents or business, no matter what time of the day or night, whether he was on the clock or had already ended his day and was at home. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Municipality of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, the Council of West Milton hereby expresses its sincere gratitude and appreciation to Jim Pickett Wilson for his dedication and commitment to the citizens of West Milton. Section 2, the Council of West Milton sends well wishes for long health and happiness as Jim enters a new phase of life in retirement. And Section 3, this resolution shall take effect and be in full force and after its adoption.
Thank you, Ben. Council, before you is Resolution CM-1630. Are there any motions?
Make a motion to
Second that.
CM 1630.
Second. Council, before you is a motion regularly made and duly seconded to pass Resolution CM-1630. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cott?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Grudich? Yes. Dorman?
Yes.
Tennerman?
Yes.
And Mayor Francis.
Yes. Now, Ben, could you get Mr. Pickett to come on up here? 'Cause he looks entirely way too comfortable in the corner.
Oh, no, come on.
You didn't wear black for nothing.
Exactly. Black and match. So I'd like to, on behalf of council, city, everybody, you've been great to know, to work with. No matter how hard time Ben gives you. Whenever I see you out on the street, always helping everybody. It's been greatly appreciated. I don't know how many comments we've gotten in town. Sad people to see you go, but happy for you. So,
Okay.
thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Anything you want to say?
Funny man, my bonus checks in the mail.
A check with Ben. Do you have any outstanding yellow stickies from Jill?
Nope, he doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Moving on to the municipal manager's report. Manager Klein.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and guests for this evening. Just a few things. This coming Saturday is this year's annual Fall Fling Car Show. Will be this Saturday, September 17th. It starts at 4 o'clock, but it's been our experience that the vendors and artisans and cars start rolling in around 3. So our intentions are to shut down the streets around 2:30 this year. Music will be provided by Tom from WMPA. And at dusk, the park board will be sponsoring a free movie in the park. This year, it will be Zootopia. Speaking of Fall Fling, I did lay on your desks this evening just to show you an ad that's been put in both the Record Herald and also the Troy Daily News, just to show you. That ad was actually it's Susan Funderburg, who's actually been working with council members Kopp and Grudich on the farmers market. Thank you. And she's put in some ads for both the farmers market this year and also this year for the car show and Fall Fling. They're free ads, which we are very grateful for. I had a meeting with her this afternoon, and she's getting ready to set one up for the open house and tree lighting ceremony and Santa Claus coming to town here the weekend before Thanksgiving. Two other items. As you know, that I think every community in the neighborhood has passed a moratorium on the marijuana. Some are ahead of us, some are behind us. Law Director Brosh have informed me of an opportunity that we will be attending this Thursday evening, sponsored by the Ohio Municipal League. It's a webinar that will give us some outline as to what to expect and what to do. Once we have more information, we'll be sharing it with you. Council did pass a moratorium on medical marijuana for 6 months at the last council meeting. We'll be following the leads of other communities to see what their plans and intentions are. But hopefully this webinar will give us some education. I do know that the rules have not even been written yet by the state of Ohio, nor has a medical marijuana board even been appointed by the governor yet. So there's a lot to do prior to anything ever really happening. So we'll keep everyone posted once we learn more. And then finally, as we do every year, the Miami County Budget Commission did pass their recommendations for millage. It's the same as it's always been for us. It's the regular 10 mil limitation, which we received 3.4 out of that, and then the street levy. But to do that, as we do every year, a motion needs to be made by council in acceptance of the Budget Commission's recommendations. And then prior to you leaving, I'll need your signature on the official forms so we can mail them back to the county. I took the opportunity to create a motion for you that would be acceptable to the Budget Commission.
Mayor, I make a motion that the rates of tax as determined by the Miami County Budget Commission for the year 2016 be accepted.
Second.
Council, before you is a motion regularly made and duly seconded to accept the rates of tax determined by the Miami County Budget Commission. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cobb?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Fogel?
Yes.
Grudich? Yes. Dorman?
Yes.
Tinnerman?
Yes.
And Mayor Francis?
Yes, the motion passes.
Just one other item that I happened to think of. I did mention the Garden Club. They were very, very busy this afternoon, or this morning, planting mums, both downtown, and if you get a chance, please go see our entrance sign out on 571 on the east side of town. And also, we were approached, and I mentioned this in one of my memos to you, we were approached by Vectren here recently. You may know or may have noticed at one time off of Washington, or on Washington Street, by our park and by our parking lot, sort of behind Curry's. There's a nice little building, and they're going to be abandoning that building. So Ben and I were talking, and we've taken a look at the building. It's not ready, but Vectren would like to donate that building to us at no charge. They're several months away from doing that, but they would like to do that. And we've both taken a look at the building. It's dry. It's good. It's in good shape. And we thought that would be an ideal place for the garden club to be able to house their shovels, topsoil, mulch, flowers, whatever, fertilizers, watering cans, you name it. It's a nice little space and would be convenient for them. So once Vectren gets to that point, and like I said, they're several months away, but they did mention it to us, and we took a look at it, and yeah, I think it would really be a nice little asset for the garden club.
Sounds good.
That's all I have for this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, Manager Klein.
And actually, in addition to the garden club, I would like to thank all of the women that have come out and participated in the garden club. We just, have citizens that have decided to take part in helping plant things and weed things, and just really appreciative of them. So thank you, ladies, if you're watching.
Thank you, Councilwoman Kopp. Council, is there any other old business you'd like to discuss this evening? Any new business? No?
Yes. I'd like to request a executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual.
Okay. Council, before you.
Do we need a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Council, before you is a motion regularly made and duly seconded to enter into executive session under the reasons set forth by Councilman Tinnerman. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cup,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Grudich. Yes. Dorman,
Yes.
Tinnerman,
Yes.
and Mayor Francis.
Yes. Okay, we will adjourn to executive session here in one moment. Just want to remind everyone that September 27th is our workshop meeting. It will also be a special session of council at that
I
time.
have no idea. I didn't know we were.
And then, is there any final comments from citizens? Because when we get back from the executive session, we will just close council. No further actions will be taken at that time. Yes, sir.
Are minutes kept for this executive session?
Minutes for the executive session? No.
Notes,
No.
something like that?
No, sir.
Are you required to by law?
No, sir.
I'd recommend you do keep minutes and notes.
It's part of the purpose of an executive session is to council, correct me if I'm wrong, Lene, council to have the ability to have a discussion without minutes and notes. Would that be
Correct. Yes.
accurate?
Frank, discussion's off the record.
I understand the intent, but if there's a matter that serious being discussed, how would the public then find out what the discussion was?
Council cannot take any action in executive session. So any action that would come out of an executive session, and there's multiple reasons to go into executive session, those actions would have to be taken in a public meeting, which would be open to the public, including the minutes and notes. And such a public meeting would either be a regular council meeting or an advertised special meeting. The public is made aware, is what I'm trying to let you know.
And at that point, then, we would be able to find out the discussion that occurred, or the...
No, you'd be able to find out the action that takes place in the public meeting.
So whatever comes out of this executive session then will be available or discussed on the next council meeting?
No, the proceedings of an executive session remain in the executive session. They're not shared with the public.
But then when would it be brought up, whatever these decisions are, or whatever?
We don't, I'm not trying to sidestep your question, I just want to make sure I'm clear in my, concise in my answers. We do not make decisions in executive session. Any decision is made in a public meeting.
So when
It's
this decision
discussion
is made, will
only.
be in the next council meeting?
If there is a decision resulting from an executive session, yes, it would be at a later meeting.
The next public meeting?
Yes,
Next month?
Yes.
Next month, let's say.
yes. All of our meetings are public and advertised. So, and just to further explain, an executive session cannot, make sure I get this right too. You cannot go into an executive session from a workshop meeting. The workshop meeting would have to be considered a special meeting to be adjourned into an executive session. Is that, most of our workshop meetings are just a general informal discussion that is open to the public.
Okay. So far. Thanks.
Okay.
And can we get your name for the record, sir, for the minutes?
Ted Brigott.
There you go.
Prihaka?
Can you spell your last name for the clerk, please? Just
Prehotdka,
And your address, sir?
221 Park Avenue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other comments from citizens this evening? All right. We are adjourned to executive session, and as I said, no further actions will be taken after the executive session, except closing the regular council meeting. Thank you, everybody.